Welcome back to the channel, guys. Amazon have dropped the brand new trailer for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power at Comic-Con, and they've gone hard. We have a potential first look at Sauron, a Palantir, a Balrog, and so much more. This is definitely the best trailer they've released so far, and there's a lot to discuss, so let's break this down. But as always, before we start, if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe, and I'd really appreciate a like on this video. I will skip over a lot of the old footage, we've discussed this a million times, but definitely check out my older videos if you want to hear my thoughts on that. The trailer begins with Galadriel, who is pretty much the main character of this show. She stands before a massive pile of fallen elven helmets, and she places one, and we believe this is the end of the First Age, after the War of Wrath. The elves suffered huge losses, both in life and land, but good did prevail in the end, and the Dark Lord Morgoth was imprisoned in the Void. And just like the trailer says, we thought the war was over, but it turns out Morgoth's servant, the fallen Maya Sauron, is still around, and he wishes to fill the void left behind by Morgoth and become the new Dark Lord and rule over Middle-earth. If you remember back to the previous trailer, Galadriel and Elrond have an argument about who's seen far worse. But in the books, Galadriel didn't fight in the War of Wrath. But on the show, it looks like she takes part in it, or at least witnesses much death and destruction, including the death of her brothers. And we can see her in this trailer mourn over her brother, Finrod, whose body was recovered from the dungeons of Sauron. And we can see Finrod hold the dagger, which Galadriel wields in the posters. Remember, Finrod was a prisoner of Tolengoroth, Sauron's fortress. It was once an elven fortress, but is now a haven for Sauron's werewolves. Finrod was taken prisoner here and died here, and we can see werewolf claw marks all over his body. We believe the first episode will feature a prologue, just like the Peter Jackson movies. Episode 1 will go back to the First Age and before. We will see the creation of Arda, the two trees, and the War of Wrath. Obviously, it's just a prologue, it's only going to be maybe 10 minutes, maybe more, and it's mostly going to be focused around Galadriel's grief, and her and Sauron's backstory. And supposedly at Comic-Con, they showed off another picture of the two trees of Valinor, and you can see the shadow of Morgoth behind the two trees. So yes, the First Age, full of dark and despair, death and destruction. Contrast to the present time, during the Second Age of Middle-earth. The High King of the Noldor, Gil-galad, rules out of the elven kingdom of Lindon. Elrond is one of his subjects, and he's also a close friend and pupil to the High King. And it seems like they're setting up Galadriel as being paranoid of her turning evil, and she holds a grudge against Sauron for what happened to Finrod and many others. But the other elves of Middle-earth seem quite content with their lives. They seem happy. They're at peace, for now. And we can see Gil-galad honour and crown Galadriel, and we think this could be him giving her permission to return to the west. But during a storm she ends up on the island of Numenor instead. But I just hope this is not Gil-galad's way of getting rid of Galadriel. As in the books, Gil-galad was on her side. He did not trust Anatar, and he was leader of the Elves in the Last Alliance. He was very aware of the darkness and the upcoming threat, so I hope it's not a moment of, oh shit, she was right. I know I wasn't going to talk much about old stuff, but we get the banquet shot of Gil-galad, Elrond, Celebrimbor, Durin the Fourth, and others. And I believe this is an alliance between the elves and dwarves, in times of peace. We can see Celebrimbor and Durin toast. They've become close friends because of their mutual interest of using mithril of Khazad-dûm to create wonders and become filthy rich. And then we have Numenor, the island, the home of Aragorn's ancestors. Galadriel and the Queen Regent Tarmiriel look into one of the legendary Seeing Stones, a Palantir, perhaps the Master Stone. It seems like Tarmiriel shares Galadriel's fear of her turning evil, but I think she'll have to convince the King's Men, who are a large faction of Numenor, led by her cousin, Pharazôn, who I believe is the Chancellor of Numenor and a very important advisor. So it seems like Numenor will face struggles from inside, and we can see the Nimloth, the Numenorian white tree. Its white petals fall, and I see that as a sign of the decay of Numenor is approaching. Very similar to the Peter Jackson movies, where the white tree of Gondor regrew when the king returned, but when the king was gone, it was dead. So yes, what does Galadriel see in the Seeing Stone? Perhaps a memory to the First Age, or a current threat? The trailer makes it out to be like she revisits the past and witnesses the War of Wrath and the death of her brother Finrod, but I think that's just cut for the trailer. I don't think stones can go back into the past. They can communicate with each other, and if the user has a strong enough will and wields great power, they can pretty much see anything across time and space. And Galadriel fits that bill, and perhaps she's using the stone to see the treachery inside Numenor. Or perhaps Galadriel and Tir Harad are going to attempt to use the stone to find the Dark Lord Sauron. And he is not someone you want to get into a battle of wills with. And here they are, the cult of Sauron, and perhaps Sauron himself, or an acolyte. There's a bit of confusion on this character. We don't know if it is Sauron, we assumed it was, and we actually assumed it was played by a male actor, but turns out it's played by a female actor. There's no confirmation it's Sauron. It could be one of his acolytes, but many are saying this is the Dark Lord. And it's pretty obvious the trailer is trying to convey that message. But perhaps the only reason it's doing that is because the identity of Sauron is the major twist of Season 1. We think it's this character, maybe it is, but maybe it's someone else as well. Because Sauron has many faces. He is a shapeshifter. He's taken the form of a wolf, a serpent, a vampire, Anatar the Lord of Gifts, the wicked Dark Lord far larger than a man, and so many more. He has many names, many faces. And I think my theory that Sauron strikes first in the east, but his presence will be felt all over Middle-earth, still holds up. Because there's many candidates for Sauron, whether it's Meteor Man, the man that arrives on a meteor on the ball of fire from the sky, Halbrand, the man that Galadriel befriends on the Sundering Seas, or Adar, the fallen elf-like being, who is basically the leader of the orcs. So why would they show off this character who gives the impression that it is Sauron? Perhaps to get us talking. It has caused a major pop. But maybe to help keep the big twist a secret. Because I think Sauron and his forces attack in the east, and Numenor and the west come to their aid. But it turns out the devils are inside the walls the whole time, and Sauron is not really there, or he is left, or he was never there in the first place. I know some people say this looks more like Slim Shady, or Emo Sauron, but it could just be one of his disguises, or even an avatar, an acolyte. This might not be Sauron. But if this is Sauron, like I said, he's a shapeshifter, he won't look like this all the time. Especially when he comes to meet Celebrimbor to forge the Rings of Power. I feel that Anatar will look far fairer and trustworthy. This guy just looks pure evil. Then we have Elrond in Khazad-dûm. Perhaps this is before the banquet, and he's sent there by Gil-galad to arrange it. Or is Celebrimbor using Elrond to get his hands on mithril? Or does Elrond have his own purpose? Because Elrond in this show is far younger, and he's not the great respected leader of the Third Age, of Rivendell. He's still trying to establish himself, but luckily for Elrond, he comes from a very famous family, and he has his own merits. And the current dwarven ruler is King Durin III, and his son is Durin IV, which is kind of BS because no Durin exists at the same time as another. The dwarves believe that Durin is reincarnation. It's not a name passed from father to son. But I suppose the time compression has its flaws. And to me it seems like Durin III is warning his son. Warning against darkness, against Sauron, or something far worse. Something below them that they don't know about yet. Perhaps it involves mithril, and Durin IV's ambition to delve too greedily and too deep. And the Balrog shows up in this trailer. Whether that's Durin's Bane itself, or Gothmog, or another Balrog, in a flashback. But I think this is Durin's Bane, and we will see the downfall of Khazad-dûm. Next up we have Galadriel all armoured up. We can see that red light effect, and she's covered in ash. At first I thought this could be a flashback, but now I think this is when Galadriel, Tir Harad and the armies of Numenor come to Middle-earth to fight Sauron in the east, and the red light and the ash are the spell cast by Sauron, or his acolytes, and now into the east, into Tir Harad. Theo, the son of the woman Bromwyn, who is in love with the Sylvan elf Arondir. And these three and Tir Harad are all brand new. And originally I didn't really care about them, but this trailer has intrigued me. And I think Theo could be a half-elf, half-human, son of Bromwyn and Arondir. But he seems to be the main plot of the story of Tir Harad. And it seems like Theo has been cursed by Sauron, or his acolyte. Theo is holding his arm like he's in pain. Has he been marked? And this spooky old man asks him if he's heard of Sauron. I wonder if this man is real, and not just a figure of Theo's imagination, or Sauron's curse. And he's showing Theo his arm as well. Are they both marked, or is Theo just imagining this man? and perhaps this mark could be the symbol that keeps showing up time and time again. It's magically imprinted into this stone. We can also see it in the Northern Waste, where Galadriel's party fight the Snow Troll. It kind of seems similar to the Broken Sword, and perhaps Tolengoroth. Is it the symbol of Sauron before he takes up the All-Seeing Eye? And we can see the sword reforge in fire and shadow in Theo's hand. And we will see orcs attack Tir Harad. And there has been a theory for a while now that this land becomes Mordor once Sauron rules. And I must say, I'm very impressed with the orcs. They're totally giving off a horror vibe. This is going to be a massacre. But why Tir Harad? Is it to do with this sword? Is it all about Theo? Does Theo find it, or perhaps it finds him? I think this sword is cursed by Sauron, and in turn Theo is. It's definitely an evil looking blade that reforges in fire and shadow, very similar to Sauron or his acolyte and their powers in the trailer. But so perhaps the Dark Lord is looking for this sword, or using it to corrupt Theo to infiltrate Tir Harad. So there has to be more to it. And this blade is definitely at the centre of it all. Perhaps it's a Morgul blade or something very similar. We can see Arondir perform elven acrobatics. I am totally getting Legolas vibes here. But as long as they're not gravity defying like the Hobbit, I have a limit. We can also see ships explode inside Numenor, or Sauron's forces inside the walls. Or has Pharazôn and the King's Men taken over? Do they disagree with going to Middle-earth in the first place? Then we can see Adar, and the orcs bow before him. Remember, Adar is played by Joseph Mawle, who is Benjen Stark in Game of Thrones. He is either one of Sauron's many faces, or a fallen corrupted elf, who is now the leader of the orcs. Then we have Halbrand in Numenor, the man that Galadriel meets on the Sundering Seas, and they survive the storm and this massive sea creature together. Perhaps the slim shady looking guy is just one of Sauron's acolytes, and this is Sauron, and he has a plan to destroy Numenor from the inside. Sauron does go to Numenor in the books, but as a prisoner of Pharazôn, who comes to Middle-earth and takes Sauron back. And from there, Sauron becomes chief advisor, practices sacrifices to Morgoth, and convinces the king to break the ban of the Valar and sail into the west to claim immortality, and thus this causes the downfall of Numenor. So if Halbrand is Sauron, then is this how he causes the downfall? Whilst Galadriel, Tormiriel, and all that are too busy fighting Sauron in Middle-earth, Sauron is actually on Numenor. Will this be the downfall, or will he flee and later return once Pharazôn is king? Maybe Pharazôn goes looking for Sauron because something happens on Numenor, and he holds a grudge. Guys, I wasn't kidding when I said in a previous video that they're making a lot of this stuff up. And like I've said in many videos, I'm not against adding new stuff, as long as it's done well and respects Tolkien. So yeah, next up we have Bronwyn and Arondir. They rally the people of Tir Harad to fight back against the orcs. I'm just wondering what the villagers are going to do when they find out that Theo could be the cause of it all. Maybe they try to sacrifice him or give him to Sauron to save themselves. And it looks like Arondir is gonna go through hell. He's gonna fight orcs and wargs. He's not gonna have a good time. And at the end of the trailer, he's snatched up by something. People are saying it's orcs, but I think it's an Ent or an Ent wife. Arondir is a Sylvan elf, and on his chest piece, it looks like he has an Ent's face. So maybe he lives in a land quite close to the Ents. Not Fangorn, but perhaps the Brownlands, where the Ent wives were last seen. Maybe this is where Tir Harad is, or it's close by. Maybe Arondir retreats to the Brownlands with the Ents, and we know the tragic story of the Ent wives. They were all killed and burnt by Sauron. Then we have Galadriel in a hero shot, boarding a Numenorean ship bound for Middle-earth, and we can see Galadriel lead the cavalry charge. On the battlefield, the Númenóreans are pretty much unstoppable, but Sauron is far too clever, and then when Tormiriel, Galadriel, and their armies are in Middle-earth, Numenor is wide open. For Pharazôn, for Halbrand, maybe for Sauron. And we can see Galadriel embracing someone. And I'm guessing this could be Halbrand. So either Halbrand is in Middle-earth with them, and he's your typical male action hero, or there's more to it and he is Sauron. Then we have Queen Regent Tormiriel looking pretty glorious. I believe she's walking through the white trees fallen flowers. But what is she holding? Is that a baby, a Palantir, or something else? And we witness a dwarven song, or a lament, led by the princess Disa, who is the wife of Durin IV, who is amazed by mithril. I believe he's on the first dig to find mithril. He takes it back to his father and says, "We can be rich and powerful, the greatest kingdom in the land." but mithril is what leads to the doom of Khazad-dûm, and the Balrog goes to town on them. I think Durin the Third will die at some point because of the mithril digs, and then Durin the Fourth becomes king. This could be his father's funeral. I don't think it's epic enough to be his coronation, so it could be his father's funeral. Then we have the Meteor Man, one of the characters that could be Sauron. He befriends the Harfoots, and it's almost like he earthbends from Avatar, so he's definitely magical. He's either one of Sauron's forms or a blue wizard. Has to be. Then we can see Tir Harad and Numenorian soldiers, and there's like a blast that goes right through them, either from Meteor Man or Adar or Sauron. But wait, why is there a leaf? A leaf from Lindon? And is that a mithril vein of Khazad-dûm? Is Sauron in Lindon, or has he been to Lindon? Is he in Eregion where the rings were forged? Is he in Khazad-dûm now? Will Sauron wake up the Balrog to destroy the dwarves? What is going on? This character mentions the lies of Middle-earth. Has Sauron cast a spell on this leaf from Lindon and it spreads all over Middle-earth? And is this part of his plan all along? Tir Harad was just one big setup to weaken Numenor and keep Galadriel and the West busy. Is this when he becomes Anatar and goes to Celebrimbor to forge the rings? Or is this character just one big ploy to keep the true Sauron a mystery, who will be revealed on September the 2nd? But yeah guys, I think that'll do it for today. If I've missed anything, just let me know. And of course, make sure you post your thoughts on the trailer. Before this, I was 50-50. I was getting more negative with every video, but this trailer has brought my hopes back up. It's either clever marketing and a well-cut trailer, or this show might be decent. Of course, we don't judge a book by its cover, nor a film by its trailer, but I am impressed with this footage. If you have any requests from Comic-Con, Lord of the Rings, or anything that I cover, or anything you want me to cover, just leave that below. But for now, I'll say thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want more, please subscribe, please like the video as well, and I'll see you soon.